Good morning, children. Let's start chapter 6, World After 1945, page number 39 of your textbook. This is History, chapter 6. Let's start. Let's come to page number 39 of our textbook. First paragraph. The pages of history are full of innumerable war fought in ancient India and the world. Yet the most destructive war which will always be remembered in the modern world is the First and the Second World War. The League of Nations was formed with the purpose of establishing permanent peace in the world. But due to certain limitations, it failed, and in 1939, Second World War broke out. As we have seen, our Indian history as well as the world history is full of war, different war, fought at different places at different time. Among these different wars, the most destructive war still we are keeping in history is the First World War and the Second World War. To stop World War in future, after the First World War, the leaders of different nations met together and formed the League of Nations that we have studied in our smaller classes. But League of Nations were not able to stop the Second World War because it was having many loopholes and many limitations, and thus the Second World War broke out in the year 1939 when Adolf Hitler attacked the neighboring country. We have seen that the Second World War started. Now moving to same paragraph, continuing with same paragraph, line number 4 of our textbook, last session. The disturbed state of mind and the horrors of the Second World War persuaded human beings to make efforts for peace and protection of independence once again. This resulted in the establishment of the United Nations in the year 1945 on 24th October. I hope you remember the topics which we have discussed in the previous chapter, chapter 3. Chapter 3, Movement Towards a New World. There we have discussed about the beginning of starting of United Nations. See, at the end of the First World War, we have seen that the League of Nations was formed in order to establish world peace. But we have seen that League of Nations was a failure, and by the end of the Second World War on 24th October 1945, the United Nations was established with the purpose of peace, security and coexistence in the world. And the main person who was behind the formation of United Nations was American President Roosevelt, and he was supported by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. This we have studied. They have signed the Atlantic Agreement. Then with the foreign ministers of Britain, America, Russia and China, they have met at Moscow for world peace, and they formed the Moscow Declaration, and finally around 51 members, that is 51 member nations of the world, they declared the establishment of United Nations, and that's why that's why every year 24th October we are celebrating as United Nations Day all over the world. At present we are having around more than 193 nations are part of United Nations. So this is the way how United Nations was formed. The formation of United Nations we have studied in chapter 3. Now here we are discussing about United Nations and its aims. That's why I started this paragraph here as a separate topic. So why United Nations was started? The disturbed state of mind and the horrors of the Second World War persuaded human beings once again to make efforts for peace and protection of independence, and this resulted in the establishment of United Nations. See, when United Nations started, that time it was having the name United Nations Organization or UNO, and they established on 24th October 1945. Later, it was renamed as United Nations. Okay. The United Nations Charter. What do you mean by charter? The introduction of United Nations aims and objective. There, they starts with the preamble. As you know, our constitution is also having a preamble, the introduction. Same way, United Nations Charter starts with the preamble and it explains the goals of United Nations. What do you mean by goals? Goals. Goals means aim, lakshya. Okay. Let us discuss about the goals of United Nations. Which are the goals of United Nations or aims of United Nations? The United Nations Charter begins with the preamble and explains the goals of United Nations. It is given below. That is, first one is the United Nations makes a determination to save the future generation from destructive wars by preventing war. It emphasizes that the countries of the world should obey international laws and move ahead with mutual understanding. See, there is a common law, international law is there, which is supposed to obey by all the member nations. So, if they are violating from the rules and regulations of United Nations, so one particular international court of justice is there. They will take strict actions against this country. So, second one, it also emphasizes that the countries should develop tolerance towards other countries so that the whole world develops socially. See, all should consider as an equal, they all are individual countries. सबको अपना अपना respect देना पड़ेगा. Without any reason go and attacking other nation, it is very difficult. It will create problems. That's what happened in the Second World War. That was the reason why Second World War started. So we have to prevent this type of things in future. That's why the member nations, they are supposed to obey the rules and regulations of the United Nations. Third point, economic, social and cultural problems should be solved with the intervention of United Nations, and human rights as well as basic freedom should be disseminated, irrespective of caste, language, gender or religion. See, economic, social and cultural problems. Each country is having different problems, and these problems will be, for example, our problem with India and Pakistan, the problem of India and Pakistan, or problem of India and China regarding the boundaries. So, this type of problem, each country is having their own different problems like economic problem, social problem, cultural problem. This will be solved with the help of United Nations. Whenever we are having any problem, we used to share our problems in the common meeting of United Nations. Human rights and basic freedom should be provided to all irrespective of their caste, language, gender or religion, whatever may be the problem. Even if the problem is there in the country, or if there is a problem between two countries, it is the responsibility of the nations to present it before United Nations, and they will solve the problem for us. Fourth point, the United Nations appeal to all the nations to cooperate with this objective. United Nations is appealing to the member nations to cooperate with the objectives of the United Nations. So, finally, United Nations Charter concludes like this way, that dismissal of war and constant urge for peace is the main objective of United Nations. So, this section you can write as the answer for section 1, question 1 of our chapter. For example, please come to page number 45 of our textbook. Section 1, question 1, write about the United Nations and its aim. For that, we will be coming to clip number 3, that is the heading, United Nations and its aims. Okay, there, first section, write about United Nations. So, I am having that point there, United Nations. That is, the disturbed state of mind and the horrors of the Second World War persuaded human beings once again to make efforts for peace and protection of independence. This resulted in the establishment of United Nations Organization on 24th October 1945, later renamed as United Nations. Now, the following section that we are discussing about its aims. Okay, and next heading, goals of United Nations. That is, we are having 4 points, and the last line, what is the main aim of United Nations? That is world peace, dismissal of war, and constant urge of peace. That is the main objective of United Nations. Till there, you are supposed to write for answer number 1 of section 1. Hope you got the answer. Moving to the next topic, that is the most important topic, that is Cold War. Before starting with Cold War, let me come to a small introduction. That is, establishment of UN is the starting point of a new world. This you will be getting as a question for give reason. Already the topic we have discussed. So, I am not going in detail. You can read and understand it. This is an answer which you can expect as a give reason. That is, establishment of United Nations is the starting point of new world. Give reason. That points you can add for 5 points. You can add as answer for a give reason. Okay. Moving to the most important topic, that is Cold War. Let me go through this section before starting. We have discussed it last year in 8th standard. See, before Second World War, Russia and America was under one, they were under the one leadership. But after Second World War, Russia and America, they separated. I hope you remember the chart which I have drawn on the board, USA and USSR. Russia is also known as USSR, USA, America. So, after Second World War, the world was facing lots of problems, and Russia and America became the superpowers, or we will call them as the superpowers, or another name we are having for them is the power block. You should see the spelling of power block. It is not B-L-O-C-K, it is B-L-O-C, that is power block. So, America became a power block and इसका enemy और उसका rival है रशिया. दोनों के बीच में छोटे छोटे इश्यूज़ के ऊपर झगड़ा हो रहे थे, और स्पेशली इश्यूज़ आइडियाज़ के ऊपर है. अमेरिका जो भी आइडिया बोल रहे उसका जस्ट ऑपोजिट रशिया बोलेगा, और रशिया जो बोल रहे उसका जस्ट ऑपोजिट अमेरिका बोलेगा. तो ये दोनों सुपर पावर्स के नीचे अमेरिका को जो भी सपोर्ट कर रहे वो अमेरिका के ग्रुप में आ गया, और रशिया के सपोर्ट में जो भी है वो लोग रशिया को सपोर्ट कर. सो द वर्ल्ड डिवाइडेड इनटू 2 blocks. I hope you remember I have drawn it on the board, or I am coming with that same chart again. So, though the Second World War got over, it resulted in the creation of America and Russia as superpowers, while taking the place of England and France. पहले world power England और France था Second World War के पहले, और अमेरिका और रशिया इंग्लैंड और फ्रांस के नीचे था. Allied power and Axis power, I hope you remember. But आफ्टर सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर जर्मनी जापान ये सब पूरा जर्मनी जापान इटली सबका सत्यानाश हो गया. फिर कौन है बाकी? अभी वर्ल्ड पावर इंग्लैंड और फ्रांस के ऊपर आ गया रशिया और अमेरिका. नाउ a strong competition between two superpowers. Which are the superpowers? America and Russia. तो पूरा दुनिया के सामने उनको दिखाना है कि मैं हूँ सुपर पावर. हाँ, तो दोनों के बीच में छोटे छोटे इश्यूज के ऊपर झगड़ा करना शुरू किया. दैट इज सी अमेरिका एंड रशिया they were together in the second world war, but Russian administration policies created differences between America and England, and thus they separated. Now, a strong competition between the two superpowers, that is America and Russia, established to establish supremacy over the world. After the Second World War, they became two groups. The power was centralized between two poles, that is अमेरिका एंड रशिया. पूरा दुनिया दो हो गया. कोई थोड़ा ग्रुप अमेरिका के नीचे, थोड़ा ग्रुप रशिया के नीचे, और एक थर्ड ग्रुप है उसके बारे में भी हमने डिस्कस किया है. दैट इज नॉट नाउ, दैट वी विल डिस्कस लेटर. सो वर्ल्ड इज नाउ डिवाइडेड इनटू टू ग्रुप, दैट इज पावर ब्लॉक एंड that is two group, that is अमेरिका एंड रशिया. ये सिचुएशन को हम बोलता है बाइपोलर वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर. बाई मीन्स टू, टू polar region, two bipolar, two world is divided into two power blocks. So ये दोनों के बीच में, that is two power blocks के बीच में बहुत सारा आइडियाज़ के ऊपर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हो रहे थे, और ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स के वजह से बहुत टेंशन्स पूरा दुनिया में हुआ था. एंड दिस फेज इज नोन एज कोल्ड वॉर फेज. अंडरस्टूड? दिस फेज इज नोन एज कोल्ड वॉर फेज. ऐसा बहुत सिचुएशंस हुआ, अभी दोनों के बीच में झगड़ा हो जाएगा. एक शुरू करो तो पूरा वर्ल्ड अभी बाकी होने वाला ही नहीं है, वो सबको पता है. So, at various incidents, both the superpowers almost came into conflict with one another. दोनों के बीच में अभी हो जाएगा ऐसा situations हुआ था. But because of the smart interference of United Nations and the other world power, this came to a stop. As I discussed earlier, this time, that is time after the Second World War, is considered as the bipolar world order. Owing to extremely tense relations between two power blocks, this phase is known as the Cold War phase. At various incidents, both the superpowers almost came into conflict with one another. The extremely tensed situation that arose between the two superpower or power blocks, namely America and Russia, after the Second World War is known as the Cold War situation. So, if a question is coming, explain Cold War. If it is for 2 mark, you can write this section, that is the extremely tensed situation that arose between two superpowers or power blocks, namely America and Russia, after the Second World War is known as the Cold War phase or Cold War situation. Understood what is Cold War phase or Cold War situation? Now, let's discuss about the reasons. Already we have discussed, but we are summarizing it into different points. Reasons of the Cold War. England and France were the two superpowers till the Second World War. Before Second World War, who are the superpowers? England and France. Moreover, England, France, Russia and America were in the same group during the war. So, Second World War के time पे England, France, Russia and America, they were in one group, that is they were friends. But situation changed. What happened? After Second World War, Russia and America, they became the superpowers, where England and France lost the status. America and Russia had different ideologies, and so the two got separated. Thus, bipolar world power. Thus, America followed democracy. As you know, America was a democratic country, so they followed democracy while Russia followed communalism. So, many countries, those who were following democracy, they joined the side of America, and the countries, those who were following communalism, they joined the side of Russia. This resulted in a strong competition between these two superpowers to establish supremacy over the world. Many countries that believed in American ideologies joined hands with America, and those believed in communism joined Russia. This again resulted in the division of the power between the two major groups, led by America and the other by Russia. The concentration of the power between these two poles, that is Russia and America, was considered as bipolar world order. Owing to extremely tense relations between two power blocs, this phase is also known as the Cold War phase. At various incidents, both the superpowers almost came into conflict with one another and might have resulted in a major world war, but did not. Is coming to the last topic, the role and power of countries changed after Second World War. That is in our textbook, page number 39, last paragraph we are discussing. Almost all the points we have discussed, but again we are moving through that. After Second World War, the relationships and powers of various nations changed drastically. America and Russia, who before the war were friends and fought against the Nazi Germany and the fascist Italy, emerged as leaders of two rival power blocs and military bloc in Cold War between them. On the other hand, Britain and France, who were superpowers before the war and also had won in the war, lost their status of superpowers after the war. This all we have discussed. Now, what happened to Germany, Italy and Japan? I told you they have lost totally in the war, but also got ruined economically, politically and militarily. After the war, Russia captured the eastern areas of Germany and other German countries like Austria, Albania, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria and the Baltic states. After Second World War, Russia conquered all these places. Areas, they were the eastern areas of Germany as well as the other eastern countries also they have conquered, and they brought their communist government there. Okay. So, however, इसके बाद पहले तो उनके कंट्रोल में था, but later they have given back the power to the respective communist parties of those countries. Before 1949, only America had the nuclear bomb. We know that. Second World War ended with the dropping of bomb in America dropping of bomb in Japan by America, and thus Second World War came to an end. So, in 1945 they dropped the bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, after that, till 1949, America was the leader or the world power because they were having the ability of nuclear bomb. But in the year 1949, Soviet Union, Russia, Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, that is Russia, they conducted a nuclear test to display its ability in nuclear power against America. पूरा दुनिया का सामने रशिया दिखाया कि we are also having bomb. Thus, they became equal status. Gradually, the countries of Western Europe who had attained freedom from Britain and America adopted democracy. This is what we are talking about. Countries like India, Sri Lanka, that Asian countries where they were under the control of British rule. And these countries, after independence from Britain or from America, they have came under or they adopted democracy in their country. To the worksheet, question number 1, section 1, already we have discussed this question. Write about the United Nations and its aim, that we have discussed in the clip of first is part of our clip, so I am not discussing it for the second time. Moving to question number 2, answer in brief. After World War II, how did the conflict between power blocks caused the situation of conflict? Here we will be discussing about the Cold War. For that we will be writing the sections, that is Cold War. First you should give a small explanation about Cold War, then you should write about the reasons of the Cold War. Okay. With this we come to the end of today's discussion. As we are doing in the previous section, you will be writing the main points of today's discussion. After that you will be writing question number 1 of section 1 and question number 1 of section 2 into your notebook. Then extra MCQs from the section which we have discussed today. Okay. So read this textbook 2 or 3 times, complete the notebook. We will meet in the next class. Till then, stay safe. Thank you. Bye.